Multiculturalism is one of the things that makes Australia such a great place to live, but with the good comes the bad, and some migrant groups are committing more serious crimes than others.
Welcome to Australia. Beautiful beaches, sweeping plains and thriving cities and suburbs. We're a multicultural bunch and proud of it. But there are a select few spoiling the party for the rest of us.
The one that had me by the scruff of the neck said, "I wonder what it would be like to rape a white girl."
What we see is these crimes being committed by people who aren't Australian citizens is still skyrocketing.
Tonight, the new data about foreign thugs committing crimes in our country. Home invasions, carjacking, serious assaults and violent robberies. These offences are increasingly being carried out in Australia by those born in countries like Sudan, New Zealand and Kenya. So, what's behind the rise?
There's no doubt, looking at the statistics, that some elements of our community, particularly South Sudanese, have been overrepresented in those statistics and shouldn't be.
And what's being done to try and stop it?
We need to look at keeping them at school, finding them jobs and finding ways of keeping them connected.
Before we get into this story, it's important to stress the vast majority of people who commit crimes here are Australian born. After all, foreigners only make up a small percentage of our population, but there's no denying this new analysis, which reveals a sharp increase in the number of foreign-born offenders, and they're mainly here in Melbourne.
Most concerning is the rise of Sudanese-born residents carrying out violent burglaries in Victoria. The number of 10 to 18-year-old offenders from Sudan committing aggravated home invasions has soared by 390% since 2014. 98 Sudanese-born offenders were responsible for home invasions in the last year. That compares to 28 New Zealanders and 20 Kenyans.
This is actually a security emergency button. If I press this, it'll set off my alarms and this will automatically go to my local police station.
Nolene Nolan lives in Dandenong in Melbourne's southeast. She's one of many Australians who've been targeted by young thugs. Sadly for this 43-year-old, she's fallen victim twice in the past year alone.
I thought I was dreaming. I thought that I knew someone was holding on to me, but I didn't think it was real. The second slam against the wardrobe was when I realised I was in a lot of trouble. The whole time the two offenders were in my bedroom, they were screaming, "Money, phones, give me any valuables."
Motor vehicle theft by Sudanese-born youth in Victoria has climbed by 140% in the past 3 years. The rise is more pronounced with Kenyan-born offenders. There's been a 320% increase since 2014. More New Zealanders have committed car theft, but that number has remained steady over the past 3 years.
The term often used now is Pacifica because they're not limited to New Zealand but from the Pacific nations.
Assistant Commissioner Stephen Lean is from Victoria Police.
We believe that we've broken the back of this nature of offending, and the number of young people that we've had to arrest and charge and put before the courts is quite staggering, and they're reflected in the statistics.
The state's opposition leader, Matthew Guy, has taken a hardline stance against foreign-born criminals.
My view is that people who are Australian citizens, we should throw the book at them. If there's repeated offences from people who are foreign-born, they should be deported.
When it comes to serious assaults committed by foreign-born offenders, it's New Zealand which tops the list. There are more than double the number of New Zealand-born offenders committing assaults than there are Sudanese. Carmel Guerra is from the Centre for Multicultural Youth Issues. She works tirelessly with disaffected young people from migrant and refugee backgrounds.
International research and our own programs tell us that locking them up and actually condemning these young people for their behaviour does not change them.
Victoria Police also works with the state's African community, putting on sporting events like basketball tournaments.
But I think we're seeing a softening of the number of young people that are jumping in to commit those sort of offences.
A Current Affair tried multiple times to interview Sudanese community leaders for this story, but all of our requests were denied or ignored.
A city in the grips of a perceived youth crime wave.
Documentaries like Apex Gang behind the headlines on SBS claim African refugee communities have been demonised, they're misunderstood, and they're victims of media hype.
The way they're making us look is, we look crazy on the media. Literally, we look crazy.
In the heated criticism of media coverage and the ongoing arguments over political correctness, often victims like Nolene say they feel forgotten.
It feels like I'm in the Middle East or somewhere. I no longer feel safe in this state that I grew up in.
Now, a push to toughen reporting laws in this area in Victoria is making it increasingly difficult to cover this sort of youth crime. Effectively, in most cases, we can't identify a victim of a home invasion or a carjacking if the offender was underage and has been apprehended. Even if a Victorian wanted to speak out, they can't, because the courts think the offender may be identified, embarrassed or stigmatised. So Nolan, you've had to take extra measures like installing security cameras since the incidents.
Nolene's attackers haven't been caught, so she can speak out about how the crime has affected her.
And how do you feel that you have to be locked in your own home like this?
I feel like I'm the one serving the sentence.
I think that we've still got a long way to go from a police perspective as to in working with keeping our community safe around home invasions, and there's a lot of work to be done there, and we can't deny that.